Well, these first calls are always something to speculate about and to watch, but they're very prescriptive. They're very well managed. Their language is selected from both sides to be very clear, concise, because they know that we're going to sit back and say, well, what does this mean for society? I think what we're looking at is coming out of a very tumultuous Trump relationship with China, where Joe Biden has to walk a line between making the decisions that are right for the United States, things that might be reminiscent of a Trump era, keeping some of the tariffs and some of the decisions that Donald Trump had made, but also trying to create maybe a better relationship going forward, particularly if the U.S. wants to have any role in any concerns about human rights abuses throughout China.
Indeed, it's about re-establishing that relationship. China had to wait its turn for this call, and it comes after many conversations Joe Biden's had with other leaders first. Can you read anything into this and the message Washington might be trying to send in making Xi Jinping wait?
Well, I certainly think there's much displeasure coming from the White House, no matter what party is sitting in there, about China's uh, position on issues of speech, issues of human rights, but also in terms of the economic influence that China certainly has from its workforce and from its marketplace. And so I think Joe Biden has to decide how do we better these relationships, but how do we also show the American people that to the degree to which America is for sale in its manufacturing, but also the egregious treatment of citizens in China. That's probably the main issue that must come before the economics.
So how is China reacting to Joe Biden's views on some controversial issues for China, such as Hong Kong, Xinjiang and Taiwan?
Yeah, so China has to play its own, propagandistic game. I mean, Joe Biden certainly is playing a propagandistic game here too, right? In terms of how he decides to communicate and what messages are coming first in the U.S. position. China has to speak to the rest of the world in its way that it responds to the United States. These aren't just communications that are back and forth direct from a sender to a receiver, right? So China has to come back and say, we recognize that this is an international global community, but we're still doing the things that are right for us. They have a lot of reckoning to do still. The U.S. is not going to let up on that. And in fact, with Joe Biden in office rather than a Donald Trump, where again, his own tenor, his own position was really blurring a lot of those communication channels. Joe Biden has a chance here for some true diplomacy in its traditional function to get some changes in China, particularly in relationship to Hong Kong and what we're seeing there with speech and regulations and issues of free movement. There are lots of things that the White House has to put out there and changes it wants to see, and they're going to have to pick those one by one.
Well, Joe Biden says as vice president he had 24 or 25 private meetings with Xi Jinping and travelled some 17,000 miles with him, claims to know him pretty well. Do they have a history of getting along?
Well, yeah, but I don't know that we're going to see, Joe Biden get on a plane and be welcomed into China, right? I don't think that we're going to see a move like we were trying with North Korea that Donald Trump did in getting on planes and moving. I mean, the sign of the old saying of only Nixon could go to China. I don't know that we're going to see that from Joe Biden, and I think that's because there's a lot from the party that the Democratic Party that are saying, we can't have these normal relationships with a government that we see to be so outside of what we aim to see as a spreading of democracy across the world. So there could be that relationship there, and I think that will help them. But I don't know that we're going to see a huge optics change, at least in the first 100 days of his administration. But there are 3 more years after that, right? So there's time to maybe see something.
And in those 3 years, at the same time, Joe Biden has said there is going to be extreme competition with China. What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, competition in terms of where workers are, what manufacturing is, and I think really this isn't just about the good old days of manufacturing in trades and textiles and in the building of cars. This is also about technology and the influence that technologists have from China in terms of the platforms we use, the freedom of those platforms and technology companies to operate within the United States. So some of that's coming from a Trump presidency about what is allowed and what isn't allowed in terms of the corporations and the technology sector. But it has to do with the freedom of speech behind those technologies and the ability of the United States to influence what can and can't be said and done on technologies and where they're traded. So we've moved from kind of the older days of manufacturing, which is certainly a big part of what we're talking about here, but it's moved into a technological and a media infrastructure of how and where Chinese goods from a technological perspective and the flows of those informations are coming from and going and who gets to regulate them.
Robert Gutsche, always great to get your views. Thank you so much for joining The World tonight.
Thanks.